Hello and welcome to Rewind Review Season 3. It is here, and I would very much like to start by saying, Chris, sincerely, I'm very sorry.
Yeah,
I am so sorry. I for so many reasons. I have made some bad decisions in my life, and I mean that sincerely. Like, I have made some really poor choices that have actively affected my life. I regret this.
Your friendship with me being on that list.
What was that one, sorry?
I said your friendship with me being on that list.
Nowhere near this.
Yeah, like the working relationship for the podcast, you're fine with, but our personal friendship, just toxic, innit?
Yeah, it's no good. It's no good, Chris. It's borderline abuse.
It is.
Actually, me forcing you to watch this movie was borderline abuse. I've never regretted a decision more in my life. But I mean, something to talk about, I guess.
What I love is, like, it just felt then that you were like, Chris, you're going to go on an existential 10-minute analysis of our friendship. We don't need to do that. Let's just fucking talk about Joe's apartment.
Because what I'm worried is the conclusion of that will be, you made me watch Joe's apartment, and therefore this is the final episode of Rewind Reviews.
No, not at all. It was going to be a compliment.
Cutting you off at the pass, mate. I'm not letting you in this train. This gravy train. How much money we make from this podcast? Oh.
It was because
Patreon.com/nothing-but-static.
Keep the pennies coming. We're very grateful for any money. Thank you so much.
Yes.
It's always weird, isn't it? You want to joke about how little we get from Patreon, but you never want to sound offensive to those who give.
We're very
grateful
close.
For literally anything. We love it.
Chris, as a result of analysing Avatar, we're very close to breaking even.
Which is brilliant.
I genuinely, I've done the math, and we're just about covering some of the monthly fees, but we're not covering all if you include the yearly ones for like the website, stuff like the server cost for that and stuff, and the domain name and all that stuff. So we are surprisingly close. So yeah, patreon.com/nothing-but-static. For as little as $1 a month, you can get episodes early. So whatever the next episode of this is, I don't know yet. Chris is going to say at the end of the show. Whatever movie we're reviewing next week, though, you can probably, if you're listening to this on YouTube or on Spotify, whatever, you can go hear that right now for as little as $1 a month over on the Patreon. So anyway, existential friendship analysis. Chris,
I was just going to say, it is truly the most brotherly relationship in my life. Like, it was funny the other week. And this is going to sound out of date for people, but The Masked Singer in the UK is on. We just chatted about it before we went on. And you thought it was one person, and I thought it was another. And it turned out to be my person. And I was like, come on! And Jess was like, it's literally like two brothers watching sport. Except it's not. It's you and me watching The Masked Singer. But still, I thought there was something quite affectionate about like, just how like truly brotherly our relationship is.
I think the real sign of that is that you won't have seen this side of it, but I was just impressed you got it, because it was such an obscure pick. I wasn't mad at getting it wrong.
Oh no, I cheer you on when you get it right and I don't. I'm like, fair play. Like, it's very supportive as well.
Yeah, it is. I actually think we have like on the surface what looks like a very dysfunctional relationship, but I think actually it's really healthy. I think because we're often if one of us pisses the other off, we say it straight away as well. Like, if it's rare we fall out, it doesn't happen very often, but if one of us does something that annoys the other one, then we pretty much just say it. Like this, I don't get the impression there's a lot of us like hanging up the phone and then going to our partner and being like, fucking bastards, just...
or even if we don't need to, because sometimes you don't need to discuss it, but we can just we can talk in a shitty enough tone to each other for it to be clear. Do you know what I mean? But there's very rarely. Yeah, you're right. I can't think of anything that like I'd have said to Jess that you wouldn't already know.
No, that you thought.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like the epitome of that was the whole "should Lost or the West Wing be rebooted?" And like Jess listened to that and was like, "It was just pathetic." I was like, that's
not wrong. For anyone wondering, on a recent episode of Nothing But, I say recent, probably end of last year sometime, we talked about what shows should be reviewed. But anyway, our friendship aside, Chris, because I feel like I'm going to have to build some bridges to repair it from the damage I may have done by making you watch Joe's apartment. This is what happened. What's happened here? Let me just clarify. Is for those who don't know, the start of last season,
Chris, can't blame me.
I'm not blaming you. No, I'm taking. Let me finish what I'm saying. I'm fully taking the blame for this because you pulled out a knife. I dropped an atomic bomb. Is what happened. Last year, Chris made us watch a film called The Girl Next Door, which I despised. Chris didn't particularly care for either. He didn't think it wasn't the movie that he was remembering in his head, which is a totally fair and reasonable thing. The amount of time that had passed, it was an accident, right? He accidentally made us watch one of the worst films we've seen on this podcast. So out of spite, I launched a nuke. Now, admittedly, I didn't know I launched a nuke. I thought I'd maybe, pulled out a shotgun. But when I said I found the worst movie I could think of, I really don't think I knew what I was doing. I don't think I knew what I'd found. This week, we watched a movie called Joe's Apartment that I loved as a child. And I mean as a child. Like 10, 11 years old or something stupid like that.
Wow. You loved this at 11.
I love this movie dearly, and we usually start this podcast with a bit of background. So to clarify, my background of this movie was my aunt used to have Sky and Sky Movies. She had like one of them dodgy cable connections where it just played the Sky Movies. You had to pay for each individual film; it just looped through them. So she would record films for me on VHS that I couldn't get hold of any other way. So she recorded something that I wanted to see, and the next film that played was this, and it was just on the VHS, and I just watched it and just thought it was the best thing ever. I loved this movie probably for a year. And then I forgot about it. And then I think when I was a teenager, I bought maybe somewhere between teenager, like somewhere around college. I think I bought the DVD. I own this movie on DVD. Can I just make this point? And it's pretty much sat in my collection untouched ever since. And over the years of like,
did you ever watch it on DVD?
Yeah, I watched it when I bought it, and then probably never again because I went, oh, this is only funny, sort of with a bit of nostalgia for just finding this amusing as a child, and I never went back to it. Occasionally over the years, I'd find like a clip and be like, oh yeah, this movie exists. How insane! And I would slowly. It was as I did that, I realized how bad it truly was, which is why it was in my back pocket for my choice. My very vindictive choice, because there's a few reasons this was a bad choice. One, it is one of the worst films I've ever seen in my life, without question. But two, it's got a lot of something that upsets Chris deeply, which is gross out humor. Like, I could not have chose a worse movie to show you if I tried.
I don't know what. I thought you were going to say like it's almost like. What do you mean by that? Because do I have a particular aversion to? I'm not saying you're wrong, but could you? I
can't think of it.
You must be thinking of a specific thing.
Yeah, it sounds like it, doesn't it? But I genuinely it's a thing I thought I knew about you, but maybe I'm wrong. But my understanding is gross out humor is, and it's like this movie was scientifically grown in a lab to annoy you.
I don't know. Like I didn't. Do you mean like in the Cat Fingers episode of Steven Universe?
Maybe. Oh, that's more creepy, isn't it? That's like body horror.
Yeah, see, I think it's more sort of creepy. Yeah, I don't know if I particularly got a problem with gross out humour. Like I've got no issue with. In fact, if I go with the choice, I think I was thinking of going with. I think that would show that I don't. To some extent, especially. So I can't, like, you know what I mean? Like the Saw movies, I don't particularly cringe or hide when watching those, for example. Mm-hmm. But I think you're right in that if sometimes specific images and visuals creep me out, but there was nothing here particularly.
I was thinking more like gross out, not creep out.
Yeah, but I think it's more creep out than I can't think of an example where I've been upset with gross out, is what I'm saying. But but I can think of examples for creep out.
I see. I'll have to think on that. But yeah, either way, I fully take responsibility. I did not know what I was doing. I truly didn't understand how bad this was. And then
I found most offensive about it was, and it's hard to
all
explain
of it
because like. No, well, it's the fact that, like, I genuinely believe with a bit of work it could have been good. But so many things need work.
Yeah, maybe that's true. Maybe there is a good movie somewhere in here.
I think you could make... Because if you think about it, a good version of this is this is Spinal Tap. A good version of this is Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And don't get me wrong, there are worlds between the two.
Right.
But do you know what? Even Flubber is to some degree a good version of this. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like slightly fantasy-filled, slightly nuts, but they don't quite do anything apart from the occasional gag. There were 2 gags I did laugh out loud about.
Right, yeah, I've made a note of 1 or 2 moments that made me actually
They don't
laugh.
really do anything.
They were few and far between.
They don't really do anything 100% right. So, for example, you hinted and other people have referenced it being a musical. It's not. There's like 4 random songs. Mm-hmm. It's too little songs to be a musical, but it's too many songs to be a film that has a musical number or 2. Like, you know, like The 40-Year-Old Virgin. No one would describe that as a musical, but it ends with a musical number. Slumdog Millionaire, same thing. This is like the exact wrong number, and it's doing the exact wrong thing in terms of everything. Do you know what I mean? But we should explain. Well, I'll let you explain the plot.
Yeah, I'll explain what it is. This is my fault. I have to take all the hits on this. Joe's Apartment, which is a movie with the tagline "Sex, Bugs, and Rock and Roll," is a movie about a kid from Iowa who comes to New York with big dreams, and he wants a rent-controlled apartment, which are few and far between, for no money. And he finds this really gross apartment that he has to lie and pretend he's this dead woman's son to get. It's all shady as hell. The premise of the movie is that this apartment is full of cockroaches that talk. It turns out all cockroaches talk, and they particularly are fond of Joe because he's a slobby sort of MTV generation type, and he's like throwing his food cartons on the floor, and it's like a paradise for cockroaches. So they actually become quite fond of him, and then they start trying to help him in his everyday life, but end up making everything worse. Like he tries to get a job as a pizza delivery man. He opens the box of the pizza for the guy. Which, by the way, if a pizza delivery man if I opened the door and he opened the box to present me the pizza, I'd be like, what are you doing? Regardless of the fact that then in this movie the pizza is covered in cockroaches. There's a plot where he's trying to get with this girl, and the cockroaches make that difficult. But the other major plot is about his apartment. Everybody has been sort of bullied out of the apartment because there's this senator that's trying to turn it into a prison in the middle of New York.
Well, bullied out of the building.
Yeah, sorry,
obviously, yeah.
Yeah, bullied out of the building. All the other lots are now empty, and it's just a big vacant lot. I guess because can I just clarify? Actually, we usually do this right up top. We don't recommend this movie, right? You're not recommending anyone watch this.
No, because it's not even. I mean, we'll find a way, but a big thought I had was like, I can't even conjure up analysis for this. It's not even like so bad that you got to watch just to marvel how it got made. Yeah, it's just very like.
I mean, I did marvel how it got made, but I wouldn't. That's not worth the suffering that comes with watching it.
There were points where, you know, when you watch reaction videos and you think no one actually looks like no one actually reacts that animated at things. There were points during this where, like, literally my mouth was aghast, and I was like, "Oh, I am reacting like people react in reaction videos."
You know what horrible thought I had when I watched the movie? I had warned you when we originally said to do this, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, whenever we said Joe's Apartment was the next film. It's been a big gap between this series and the last series is Rewind Reviews and this one because of Avatar. And I remember saying to you, "Don't watch this with Jess. Don't put her through this." And then a part of me went, it's been a long time. Had he forgotten that advice? I pray you didn't also put Jesper through this. I honestly, you didn't. Okay, phew.
No, don't worry. Good. And she wouldn't have done either. Like I did watch the first scene last night with her, and she was just like, because I joked, I went, if it's really bad, and I would never have done this because it's cheating, and I don't want to cheat. But I was like, if it's really bad, I'll just watch it at like double speed. And then the bugs start singing, and they sound like they're on double speed. And Jess was like, "You can't do that because it already sounds like it's on double speed. So you can't double speed it anymore." The
only thing that can be said in favour of this movie is it is mercifully short. But even that makes it feel double. It's like it's an hour and 16 minutes, I think, or depending on which version you get, because there's the American version runs at a slightly different frame frame rate because it was shot on I think closer to TV cameras, and that version is an hour and 20. But because it plays at a slightly fractionally faster frame rate in the UK versions or the European versions, the film finishes at an hour and 16. It ends up being 4 minutes shorter without any scenes being different. So yeah, it's an hour and 16 minutes, the PAL version, I guess. And boy howdy, does it feel like 4 hours.
Yeah, I think, and also because I don't want to forget about this. Even the tagline which you referenced, it doesn't do right.
No,
because it's not sex, bugs, and rock and roll.
No,
and it could have been. It's not. Even the moments that like I pulled some up while you were talking. American Pie is there's something about your first piece. ... Road Trip is the greatest college tradition of all. Now, regardless of what you think of those movies, the movies do live up to those taglines.
Yes.
Whereas Sex, Bugs, and Rock and Rolls paints a picture that the movie doesn't also then go on to paint.
Well, no, that's what's wrong with
the
this
bugs,
movie. I think it's... Yeah, they've got bugs.
They've got bugs. No. But even then, the bugs are in the opening song, and I air quote song. And then they go away, and I pulled up the time, dude. I'm 17 minutes in, and these fucking bugs haven't come back yet.
Really? That is surprising.
Well, I don't think it's 17 because I couldn't. I struggled with the copy you lent me on DVD. So I ended up having to spend money, dude, to rent it. And the Amazon Prime version. Yeah, we're doing all right. We're breaking even on Patreon. You can fucking give me that £3.99.
I fucking will. I owe you double that, the interest for just the suffering. Jesus.
And that version's 1 minute, 1 hour 19. So it's probably not 17 on the European version. I don't know if for some reason Prime you rent the US version, but anyway.
I don't know which version Prime have available. It just depends on which frame rate it comes in. But yeah.
Yeah, so I remember, well, in fact I'll get it up. But yeah, I remember pulling up the thing and being like, where are these bugs?
That's crazy. But so basically, yeah, the problem with the movie, so there's two major problems, I think, with the film. And the first is the rock and roll. It's basically MTV were making their first movie, and they wanted it to have music, because MTV were at that time, they were still technically a music channel. They were doing things like Beavis and Butthead, but Beavis and Butthead was a music show. It had the music. It was mixed in with music videos. They hadn't completely dropped the music element of the MTV idea, and it was kind of it was the start of that sort of that Tom Green generation. Those slacker kids, lots of gross out humor, dumb stoner jokes. And that was kind of the vibe they were going for. But the problem is, it's a movie with a level of humor that is only going to be amusing to maybe 12 and below. Yet, it's full of swearing, sex references, and things that make it inappropriate for that age. So, the biggest issue, I think, is who is this for?
Yeah,
because
completely.
This is a cartoony, slapsticky, jingle all the way comedy in many ways. Badly done. We'll put that in a box and come back to the actual execution in a minute. But just in terms of just overall what they were going for, that's what they were trying. They seem to be doing. It's like an over the top sort of slapsticky comedy about these bugs and all the stuff in the house is moving, which is actually I think done. At the end I'm going to do the two things I think that actually were okay about this movie, and one of them is they animate all the objects in the house moving around in quite a fun way, I guess. So the apartment feels alive much of the time, which does give you an indication of how many cockroaches are actually there under things and inside things, and that's kind of fun, I guess. But it's at the same time they're trying to be this MTV teenaged real Tom Green-esque gross out humor thing, and the two things just don't go together. It should have been one thing or the other thing, because if you make it both, it appeals to literally no one, because kids will get a kick out of it because it is sort of that style of humor that children will find funny, but they're not supposed to be watching it. I don't think my parents, if they'd actually seen this film, would have approved of me seeing it at that age. And I don't think that the older crowd are going to find this kind of juvenile humor funny. But then again, Tom Green was a thing, and Tom Green was. We've all seen Freddy Got Fingered, so I guess
if it was more consistent in what it was trying to be. So by the way, on the 1 hour 19 version, at 17 minutes 36 is the noodles and the cockroaches appearing in the noodles.
Wow.
So it's a fair chunk of time before those bugs are back.
That's crazy.
After the intro. So for me, the two gags that I thought were quite funny was one of the very first ones where he gets off the bus in New York and is like, I'm here safe, and then a mugger punches him and steals something, and he gets back up, walks a couple of steps, and another mugger appears, punches him. Like, it's not a great gag, but it's fine.
It has a good punchline, though, because it happens, it uses the rule of three, so it's, Dear Mom, I've arrived in New York, and everything's great. He gets robbed. And he starts writing the letter in his head again, Dear Mom, I've arrived in New York, but he gets punched and robbed again. And then the third guy does it, he goes, Dear Mom, send money. Which I just like, that's a reasonably well-constructed gag. And in my two things that I thought were good about the movie when I was trying to find things I liked, and I was going to do it as a segment, here's a segment, Dan tries to find things he likes about this movie. The first thing on it, other than the puppetry thing about the apartment feeling alive, is I do enjoy this sort of cartoonishly violent version of New York City. Like, there's another bit that got a smile out of me when they're walking along the street having a conversation, and there's a fucking shootout, and Joe is reacting like a shootout is happening in front of him, but his mate, who's lived in New York forever, is just continuing talking. It's just ridiculous, but that made me chuckle, at least.
Yeah, and there's a great line where there's basically a very successful, or at least at one point, urinal cake manufacturer, and he's talking about how great he is, and he goes, thousands of men piss on my name every day. Like, it's great. It's a great joke, and the thing is, the cartoonish world, the stakeouts, the absurdity of it. Again, something like Anchorman did this, but better and more, and that's where that slight frustration of...
Is it just the humour, do you think?
No, I think it's the mishmash of tones. It's the script. We'll talk about some specific examples. It's the special... Because you're right, the puppetry of The Room looks brilliant. It almost reminded me of Little Shop of Horrors in some ways.
Because all the picture frames are just constantly moving. The whole place is shifting around him as he moves through it.
Yeah.
The idea being that the cockroaches are behind this thing, making it rattle and move and stuff, and there's quite a lot of that, and it looks like it was all done practically, and I think for the time, I thought it looks pretty good. Like, for a movie with a low budget like this one had, and it did have quite a low budget, it didn't even make that back, but it had actually, when you hear the figure, you'll be amazed they spent this much on it. But in the grand scheme of movies, it had a low budget, but I think they did okay with that. I think it looks all right.
Yeah, anything practical looks fine. It's the CGI bugs, and it's that, and I think that's part of the problem, because it's so dependent on that.
Yeah.
That's, and I say part of the problem. There are other problems.
There's so many problems. The list doesn't end.
The CG, and it's not even like, the CGI is of its time. No, it's just pretty bad. Like.
Yeah.
You almost shouldn't have gone so close up on some of those bugs.
Yeah.
Another big problem
what do you mean some of those bugs? Give them their correct names, Chris. Ralph and Rodney Roach. Come on.
That's another thing. I've got no idea who Ralph is and who Rodney is. They didn't do anything to define those two particular bugs.
They had two different voices, Chris. So they probably didn't. I don't even think they did.
Yeah, I doubt it.
I only know that's their name because I have weird elements of this movie, like, burned into my brain. The line that, and I literally uttered it before the Roach did on this rewatch, proved to me how embedded this film was and how much I must have watched it in that sort of like year or two when I was a kid that I thought this is the greatest movie ever. The bit where they scare off the two guys trying to scare Joe out of the apartment, and I think it's Ralph says, "We know where you live. We live where you live." That line is just in my brain forever. That is rent-free somewhere in the back of my head. And every time I think in my life someone has said, "I know where you live," I've thought, "We live where you live." It's not even funny. It's just in my head.
It's not funny, no.
It's kind of funny, I guess, because cockroaches are everywhere. I guess that's.
Look,
I guess that joke
like
isn't good, but isn't bad. That one's passable, I suppose.
Like I say, it's honestly not without
some
potential, not without merit. Is too strong. I think it's too generous.
Yeah,
but it's certainly not without potential. And it's things like one of the side plots is the female lead wanting to build this garden in New York.
Yes,
and like literally, we hear her say it. We see it in progress out of nowhere.
Yeah.
We see it destroyed, and then we see it rebuilt. And like every time we see the garden, it something is happening to
the progress
that
has
garden,
happened, but off screen almost every time.
Which means you don't connect to that plot,
no,
and that
because you're not
ideal at all.
You're not seeing the struggle. You're not seeing her start it, tackle obstacles, fail. Like all we're seeing is that she does it, then it gets destroyed, and then it just magically sort of is returned, like as a result of the cockroach plot. And there's no, so that she doesn't even have to. She doesn't even fight to solve the problem of it being destroyed. It's done for her, and that's just not storytelling. Like the character can't be that passive in their own subplot. Like that's, you know what I mean? That's
no, and it's not even like the main. It could be used as the main motif, like a better version of that.
I mean, I think it's almost offensive we're talking about motifs with this film, but like, I think that alone is giving it credit that it doesn't seem to carry on.
Not as offensive as me bringing Monty Python and the Holy Grail into the conversation.
Yeah, a little bit. But I skipped over that. I let that one pass.
The bugs, I was much more comfortable with Anchorman. I think that demonstrated the point a lot better. You could have the bugs. Not that it matters because no one knows this film and no one's listening. But still, you could have the bugs try and help and mess things up and wreck the garden, but they did it because they were trying to help. But Joe's mad at them and it's ruined his chances. With I can't remember her name. What's the name of the female lead?
I'll have to pull it up. I will bring it up while you look.
Because then you're on everyone's. You know why Joe's mad and you understand, but you feel for the bugs because you know it just went wrong and they're incompetent. It's Lily is the girl's name.
Yes,
like you understand why Lily's annoyed and it all ties and it all links. But instead, and if you haven't seen the film, I'm not making this up, the Bugs and Joe go to war with each other. Yeah. Joe gets hit with a picture frame of a woman and passes out, and then wakes up to find that the Bugs have
Gulliver's travelled him.
What, sorry?
They've Gulliver's travelled him.
They've straddled? What did you say that again?
Gulliver's travelled him. You know when in Gulliver's Travels, Gulliver gets on the island full of where he's a giant, and they just pin him down. That kind of iconic image.
But it's not just that, Dan. They've also inexplicably changed his clothes. He's not in a suit when he gets knocked out, and when he wakes up, he's in a fucking tux.
Is that right? I didn't notice that.
Well, that was my. I didn't rewind it to double check. I can look quickly now.
So what happens is So this is like that cartoony stuff I was talking about. You know, that sort of cartoon logic. So he's in the suit when he realizes he's done with the bugs. Then it cuts to him dressed as Rambo, where instead of like a bandolier of bullets,
no, he's not. He's not in a suit. He's in a shirt. Pull it up now. He's in a shirt. He's in a shirt with dots on. He's in like a yellow mustardy shirt. Goes to the Rambo, and then wakes up in a suit.
I've got him in the suit here. 1 second, let me scroll. Yeah. Oh wait, no, that's when he goes back and finds that it's been burnt down. What is this?
Yeah, that's we're talking about before he wakes up.
Yeah. I'm going to go back. So yeah, there he is dressed as Rambo. I've got him.
Yeah, rewind before that.
You're right. Oh, that is weird. So yeah, okay. Because I thought he was in a suit, got dressed as Rambo, and then just comedically went back to his suit. But no, that's just bad continuity.
No, he's in his date outfit. Then he's Rambo, which means the bugs have
put on the suit.
have taken off his Rambo clothes, and for no reason that's explained in the film, put him in a suit. And if anyone's thinking, well, part of the problem there, Chris, is you've not explained how the bugs are able to dress him. That doesn't fucking matter. That is the least. Like, you've forgotten and forgiven the logic of what the bugs can and can't do a long time prior. The only time that logic appears is at the end, where they just create plants from nothing. Like at the end where they bring the garden.
Well,
they
they steal them from the flower shop, Chris, and plant them.
Oh,
you see the doors of the flower shop open, and then all the plants start coming out, and then you see them going down that street in New York with a really bad special effect.
Yes, but then they're shown growing them from the ground.
Are they?
So are we to believe they bury them under the ground and then push them up?
Yeah, sure.
Well, anyway,
mate, if you're let's be honest. At that point, even weirder is the fact that the urinal cake somehow purifies the water. Also, right, so for those who don't know, one of the jokes in the movie is that the urinal cake company has a hostile takeover, and the guy who owned that company is now out on the street, but they've allowed him to keep the giant fake, well, I assumed fake plastic urinal cake model of his product that had been in his office. But it turns out it wasn't a fake plastic mock-up of his product, but an actual giant urinal cake. But even then, as if that logic wasn't batshit enough, they put it in the water in this vacant lot, and it turns it into a nice pond. As if by
and
magic.
Then immediately begins to, and then everything else around it begin. The shot makes it look like. Yeah. Watch that shot.
Yeah,
the shot makes it look like the urinal cake is magic.
Yeah, it does. But what's funny about that is if you look at it carefully, all the grass is growing in lines, and then one of the next things they show you is the grass being rolled out over the land to sort of demonstrate how that's working.
But this is the problem. Like, again, it's another example in that we've said, either commit to it being foul and try and make every joke as good as the there's hundreds of people pissing on my name joke. Either create a world where it doesn't matter, the bugs can do anything, which they kind of do, or create a world with grounded worlds. Don't try and do both and try and not make it consistent.
Yeah, it's funny because
and don't do things like put him in a tux and not explain it because my assumption, Dan, is that there is a scene we are missing or a scene got reshot. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it just ends up looking like a mistake. Because why also, Dan, I assume, because in that line of things, what happens is he's in the suit, the apartment burns down around him, and he exits the door of the ember, because for some reason in the fire the entire building has crumbled, which I suppose makes some sense, but it seems to happen really quickly. And he exits it, and then the next time we see him, he's in a bin bag. Did the bugs put him in a bin bag? Did he get cold, so he put himself in a bin bag? What's going on?
What I think is amazing about this is all my problems with the film. I love that you had the energy to think about any of that, because when I was watching this film, all of that stuff forgiven, because it's like if you get the basics right, I can start nitpicking, right? That's where my brain goes. Right. But it was so broken that I couldn't even spare the energy to go, why is he in a suit? That literally never occurred to me.
But it must have. So, what other ways for you is it broken then? Because is it things like what you've talked about in not picking a tone? It kind of wants to be a musical, but it's got the exact wrong number of songs for that.
I mean, the list is endless. That's the problem. It's I couldn't even. My list was so long, I didn't even get to. And why is he in a suit in that one shot? And my brain couldn't process that many things that were wrong with this movie. Everything from all the jokes that don't work. And I wanna play a quick game with you here, Chris, called Remember That Bit? I remember that bit where the thugs chose to shoot at the cockroaches instead of trying to squish them. Do you remember that bit where there was a cockroach porn channel on the TV? Hey, do you remember that bit? Do you remember that bit where his boss wanted to do nothing but ask him overtly sexual questions about his mum? Hey, Chris, do you remember that bit where he handed the love interest a used urinal cake? Hey, Chris, do you remember that bit where the cockroach said bon appetit because he was on a date? Hey, Chris, do you remember the bit when Joe was just dressed as Rambo, but with the traps and bug bombs instead of the normal bandolier? Hey, Chris, do you remember the bit when the giant urinal cake turned out to be real and cleaned up the water? Like, that's what I wrote down as I did this.
The bug gave Joe a condom, literally labelled condom. But the thing is, Dan,
the movie is ridiculous on every level, and so little of it works. I don't even know where to start.
I firmly believe, and this is what's frustrating, right?
Yeah.
And this is why, like, in my view, it's worse than just being a bit shit. At its core, I truly believe that someone could make the notion of him being dressed as Rambo, but everything he's got on him is related to bug to getting rid of bugs.
Yeah.
Funny. Someone could make that work. Like you've said it as a Jesus. Remember that bit, and you're absolutely right to, because that's how it is in this film.
Yes.
But the core conceit of that,
yes,
I genuinely don't think is actually that bad.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and again, it's just cartoonish enough that you go, like, in a different movie with a more consistent tone, you wouldn't have even minded it, maybe. Like, even as it is, because it would have maybe fit into that movie better. That's the problem. I think if you take this jigsaw puzzle apart and you show somebody a single piece of it and they look at it and go, oh, I see. He's dressed as Rambo fighting CGI bugs, and his bandolier is made of the roach traps, and he's got bug bombs instead of grenades. Yeah, that's kind of funny, I guess. I'd like to see the rest of this puzzle, and I put the next piece in next to it, and they're like, cockroach porn channel? What is this? Like, none of it works together either. That's the other thing. It's just because I'm just like, give me one of these things and do that. Like, because I can't, my brain can't process the sort of, like, almost, what's what I'm looking for? The ADHD nature of this film.
Because do you remember the bit in Toy Story 2 where the guy fixes Woody, and he's got the most elaborate. It's like he's a surgeon, but everything is actually related to being the perfect device to fix a toy. Do you know what I mean? That the core conceit of the two things we're talking about are the same. Take it to its extreme, but it's not actually about that. Do you know what I mean? And so, yeah, I think it is just a bit. And I didn't get as annoyed as I am now when actually watching it.
No, it's hard to even get annoyed about, isn't it? Because it's just such a product of its time as well. And like I do think it gets not a pass as such, but I do think it is when you're watching it, because of the context of where this movie came from. I think I definitely, knowing that, was a lot more forgiving. I was like, oh, I remember the era when people thought gross out humor was funny. Like, I remember Tom Green. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but where was the sex? But I think the other thing is the marketing. Like, you were promised sex, bugs, and rock and roll. Where was the sex and where was the rock and roll, Dan?
Yeah, so the sex, I guess, was just the references and jokes to it. Like, there's one joke I wrote down. I wrote this sentence down when Joe's I think he's trying to come up with what he wants to say to her. And he says, I want to help your garden. And the roach goes, plow a garden, Joe. Tell her you want to plow a garden. And I was like, oh dear. That's a terrible joke on every level. I was laughing at it, not with it. Does that make sense? Like, it was almost amusing because it was so bad. But I guess when they say sex, bugs, and rock and roll, they just mean the fact that the cockroaches are pretty horny, because they are constantly referencing Joe getting laid. And also they were watching cockroach porn, and like dominatrix cockroach porn as well, which I thought was like more than the joke needed.
Even Lesbian Vampire Killers actually has lesbian vampire killers. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the other thing, the rock and roll part. So let's talk about that. So this movie, right, the first of MTV's movies. MTV, sort of famous at the time. I think it played a lot of like, well, it depended on the channel. I mean, MTV obviously initially played a lot of music, but I feel like MTV's tastes over the years shifted. And I remember this era being like very much led by that sort of like alternative rock. So like like I'm trying to think of the groups that would have been on the air at the time. Like, NoFX as your Green Days, like that sort of, it was a bit punky at that point, right? If it was intentionally subversive.
In the film, there's Rancid posters and Soundgarden and Pearl Jam posters.
Gotcha, exactly, right. So this is where I think I think at one point he wears like a hat with a band name on it. So I'm trying to remember what the band was now. I can't off the top of my head. Either way, my point is they were sort of going for that era. Yet the songs are just like, what is this, like the peak disco, Funky Towel? What? Like the
funky,
music choices?
To be fair, Dan.
The music. Funky Towel is catchy as fuck. That song. That's another thing from this movie that lives in my brain rent free.
Funky Towel is the best song in the movie.
It's great. That is, I think, one of the clips I go back to every now and then. Although one of the versions on YouTube is from the French version of the movie, and the song is the existing song, no changes at all. But then when Joe enters the room and interrupts the song, it's just it's being dubbed horribly in French, but it's like the clearest, it's like the best quality version of the song on YouTube. It always really confuses me. Anyway, but Funky Towel is a tune, but it's inappropriate. It's not. It's where's the rock and roll in Funky Towel? Where's the rock and roll
completely.
in I mean, a little bit show tunes maybe for like, and they're like dun 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 dun. You're welcome to Joe's apartment. Like, it's all like very like, circusy and like show tunesy and like very big band, but like it's not the sort of tone the rest of the movie's going for. The Bugs should have been singing songs that would sort of fit that alt rock tone they were going for.
Yeah, completely.
Because otherwise, or spread the genres out a bit more. Do a rock one, do a show tunesy one, do a funky one, then maybe do a rap one or something hip hoppy, from the era. So they cover a spectrum of music from the time,
Yeah,
but like, because it feels almost like they didn't want to do the songs. It feels like the songs are there because it was MTV's first movie, and they had to. We're MTV, we better put some songs in. What could the Cockroaches sing? It was almost Chipmunks-esque. The Chipmunks used to do songs. It was like they'd release albums. It was that. Like, it was because it's obviously it's the high pitched cockroach voices, and like, I don't.
Yeah, sometimes you can't, especially those early songs. I think Funky Towel's so good because it's got a slower tempo, so you can actually hear what they're singing. Yeah. Some of those early songs, I don't have a fucking clue what the Bugs were even singing about.
No, the worst one I think is the Kitty Cat Rodeo, which for those who haven't seen the movie, and again, we do not recommend you do. Kitty Cat Rodeo is a bit where a cat comes into the apartment. And their cousin from the south shows up and lassoes the cat and rodeos it around while they yodel. Yodel, kitty cat rodeo. And I was watching that like, what is this? What is this for? Who is this for?
That's the one where I had my mouth ajar because I was like,
I'm watching a cockroach rodeo with a cat.
Where, and at this point, much like Jingle All the Way, we're just chucking out random questions, but where did the artist go, Dan? They do this whole thing of setting up the artist as a character and giving him plot points and stuff. Yeah. And then the character's just not in the rest of the movie.
Yeah, so it's almost like Joe ditches him after he does something incredibly cruel to him, which he does.
And at the end, the air quotes villain, I suppose on some level, not the true villain, which is clever, I suppose, but the kind of villain figure... Literally, the conclusion of two people want the park. She wants it to build a park. Wants this space of land. She wants it to build a park. He wants it to build a prison. The Bugs somehow edit the deeds so the entire land belongs to Joe. He chooses to give it to her for the park. And her father, who wants it for the prison, is just like, literally goes, you know what, you're right, this is a good park. That's it.
These plucky cockroaches have taught me otherwise.
Why did they even bother with the deeds? It's unnecessary.
So we're on a bigger point of what doesn't work about this movie. The plot doesn't work of this movie. There's too many of them, and none of them get the service they deserve, to the point where many of them are dropped, forgotten entirely. What actually happens to the Eurocake guy? He's homeless, I guess. That's the end of his plot. What happens to the artist? Well, he humiliates Joe, and then I guess Joe stops being his friend? What happens to the cockroaches? Well, they infest the female lead's Lily's apartment in the end. I guess they found somewhere new, but it's clean, and they claim they're going to turn it into a shithole like Joe's old place, but I think you'd have trouble doing it. It's a very nice apartment. Lily, I guess, and Joe, they get the conclusion of they're now together, but her plot about wanting the garden, she just sort of gets it because it's just sort of given to her because the movie goes, oh, movie need ending. Now she has what she wants.
Yeah.
It's on top of being totally all over the place, having some really dodgy CGI, having some of the worst jokes I've ever seen, some of the most inappropriate songs for the movie they're doing, characters that are pretty much mostly unlikable, lots of gross out humor, much of which doesn't work. It also just narratively and structurally does not function. I mean, there's so little about this movie that works. It's quite astounding. And I will say that that segment I was preparing, where I was going to read you the things I found, where I found bits I liked, it had 3 things on it: the cartoonishly violent vision of New York, the puppetry in the apartment, and when it ended. That was it. That's my list.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, it's
you gotta add the pissing on my name gag is a good gag.
The pissing on my name gag is a good gag. I wrote that down in the bulk of my notes. I wrote down 3 actual quotes from the movie. One was, "We know where you live, we live where you live," although I didn't really need to write that down because I remember that one so well. But I want to help your garden. Plow a garden, Joe. Tell you what a plow a garden, because that was just ridiculous. And then the 20 million men piss on my name every day gag, because brilliant. It's funny because one of the other things I must say actually I do kind of like is I do like the artist character, despite the fact he vanishes 2/3 into the movie and has no impact at all on the second half. I like the idea at the beginning of him just laying on the road and waiting to see if someone, like, as if he's been shot, like, with fake prosthetic, like, blood and, like, you know, and waiting to see someone actually come and help him. And it took 3 days for someone to come, and he's like, well, you must be from out of town. That's funny.
He's actually one of the most defined characters in the movie.
Yeah, he really is.
Like, he's one of the clearest characters. I've just remembered something. Sorry, do you have something else to say about the artist? Because
I'm trying. Yeah, there was. What was his other thing? He had 2, like, before the band thing. And after the.
He covered the neighborhood in paint.
Yeah, he covered. That's a funny-ish idea, even though it doesn't quite work.
And presumably, his whole thing of making Joe pretend he could drum was an art thing.
Yes, he was making a statement about. So for those who haven't seen the movie, and again, I beg you do not. He tells Joe, Joe, can you play the drums? Joe says, no, I can't. He goes, great, you'll be good in my band, and you just think that's like a joke, because music is so bad like that. So, but then it gets to the night of the show, and he gets the band on stage, and it's, we're gonna rock the place. And they turn, and the spotlight hits Joe, and Joe, obviously not being able to play the drums, just like randomly taps them in a really awful, non-rhythmic way. And then everyone starts laughing as he yells about how music is dead or whatever, and some bullshit art thing. And Joe is left humiliated and runs away. That's the last time we see that character. It's really weird.
It's quite something.
So cynical.
You know what I've just remembered? And when I say it, Dan, you're going to be like, geez, how has this not come up, and how did I not include it? You know when you were doing your remember the bit when gag?
I think I know which one you're about to mention.
Here's one you've forgotten, Dan.
Yeah.
Remember the bit when there's a montage of the lead character literally picking up shit?
That's not the one I thought you were going to go for. Yeah, there is. There's a montage of the character running around town collecting dog shit to some very disturbed owners. Elephant shit. Like
horse shit.
Yeah.
Like
because she mentions she wants manure. And then he's on the bus with a bag of shit, looking really pleased, and everyone behind him looks like they want to murder him.
And again, there's a version of that in a film like Anchorman, which could potentially be funny.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when he goes to pick up the dog shit and the owner reacts like, "What are you doing, you freak?" Like that.
It's
the
kind
fact
of
he's
funny
sort
how
of fighting the owner for it is kind of on the verge of comedy.
It's on the verge of comedy, like how everyone in the bus slowly realizes. But again, and that's the other painful thing. It's not even that hard. Like, this isn't a great joke, but it's immediately 100 times funnier. Have everyone on the bus retching and reacting, and then have one person not reacting at all. Just have one person that hasn't even noticed.
Maybe
that
sat directly next to Joe.
Sat directly next to him, not reacting at all, and make the audience go, "What's going on with that guy?" Like, you know, what was your thing? That wasn't even the thing you were thinking of.
No, it wasn't. Chris, do you remember that bit when she goes to the lot and the kids are literally making a crack house out of needles?
Oh, God.
So there's a bit in it where she's talking about how this vacant lot is a danger and there are children literally playing on it. It's full of glass and dangerous stuff. And she asks them what they're doing. And they're like, "We're making a crack house." And the camera shows, like, they have basically tied together with sellotape a bunch of, like, used crack, like, I don't know, pipes, needles, whatever. I'm obviously very, very familiar with all the different drugs, but they've like taped together all these, I guess, like heroin needles. I don't know. It just looks like it would kill you in a second. Like, and it's, I mean, where do you even start with that? Like,
honestly, like I thought of another. Sorry, it's really funny. Is to check I was right about something, I've pulled up our Spotify page, just because part of the logic of my choice was I think it's a different kind of film to what we've chosen before, and I was just sort of checking that, and I looked at the time, and we've been recording for 51 minutes, and I was like, I don't know how much more I have to say.
Well, I've got a little bit of triv. But
But I was like, this is probably going to be one of our shortest episodes. Now, take out the snowman, because obviously the snowman is short. The Girl Next Door was only 68 minutes long. And I was like, similar thing, clearly.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I mean, I just don't think they're... I just don't think that... I don't think they're comparable. I think the Girl Next Door... I think the Girl Next Door genuinely came from a spark of some creativity that I think could have been good with much less work. This is much failure in execution, and even to some extent failure in conceit as well, because the tones thing, you get the tone, figuring out your tone is early doors, right? When you're coming up with an idea and executing a story.
And it annoys me because the ingredients for the tone are there. Like, I've thought of another example, Airplane. Airplane is another example of a heightened, mad world.
Yeah.
But there's so much more work to get from this to Aeroplane than there is to get from The Girl Next Door to American Pie. And I know you don't like American Pie, but it was a success in that sort of
I respect American
genre.
Pie, even if I never particularly cared for it. 100%. I acknowledge American Pie is solid at what it's doing. It's just not. I'm just not a fan of what it's doing. Like, it's just, you know what I mean. That's a taste thing. You know what I mean. Like, I totally respect that it is a good version of what it is doing, without question. I mean, and I think a lot of the problem with this movie is summed up with just the band name. So the band are called Shit.
No.
And
it's just not funny.
And that's the thing. The only people I can think of that would find that funny are children.
It's you at 11 years old.
Yeah. And the thing about that is, it is both a thing only 11-year-olds would find funny and simultaneously a thing that gets your movie a higher rating. Because it's I believe it's on the list of words that you get a higher rating for. It's not. I always think shit's kind of one of those, like, it's a lesser profanity, but it is on the list. And if you say it enough times in your movie, you get a higher rating, right? So
Yeah, I'd put shit below fuck.
yeah, it's on the scale it's below fuck, but above hell. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like for me, I'm
Is
just
it,
like that.
is it below or above? Is it below or above piss, or is it on exactly the same level as piss?
Slightly above piss. Because people say,
Yeah, I think so.
people like in casual conversation, I'm going for a piss. Pissing about, meaning playing about. That feels. If I said I was shitting
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, do you know what
we've earned our expletive tag this month just to
because
this week,
I was
just to
I was
finish it
thinking,
off.
well,
I mean, we all know that the king is still. I assume the king is still cunt, right? Like that's still the word.
Yeah, that's without question.
Yeah, and what's funny about that is I feel like in the UK that doesn't get as much of it. Like I think that's quite low on the list of for UK because it seems to be spoken as a word a lot more casually. In America, that is like that they literally call it the C bomb.
There's a great clip of Matt LeBlanc talking about filming episodes in Britain on Conan, and he's like,
yes.
They use it to like describe breakfast, like or something.
Yeah,
it's like
he's not wrong.
It's used affectionately.
Yeah.
I
the amount of times I've heard somebody say "you silly cunt," and it's said with that level of casual affection, like you silly bastard, you silly, you silly, you little munchkin. Like it's literally used like that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I've heard people like drop spoons and call them cunts. Like, yeah. I will say with shit, just to get this out of my head, it's completely irrelevant to nothing. But I was like, there's no soft equivalent. Like with piss, you've got pee, but there is, which is shite. Shite is lower than shit.
yes,
Shite is more acceptable.
Yeah.
Than shit.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't know why that is.
No, neither do I.
That's why they used to get. That's how they used to get away with it on Father Ted. So they used the word shit quite a lot on Father Ted, but how they did it was they made it shite every time.
I think a lot of the time it's about the aggression in the word. So shite is softer than shit, and actually, cunt is incredibly sharp because of the you have to.
It's the actual the onomatopoeia of it is sharper. Yeah.
Yeah, same with fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, let's go back to Joseph.
Yeah, so should we do a tiny bit of trivia? There isn't a lot of trivia about this movie because honestly, no one cares about this movie. So there's two things I want to do. I'm going to quickly go through the handful of bits of trivia I do have, and then I'd like to read you some comments because this movie, it turns out, and I felt really bad as you said you'd paid to see it because the movie, it turns out, is on YouTube. Not in great quality, but it is just on YouTube. Like MTV cares so little about this movie, they're not even flagging it for copyright. It's been up since 2018, and it's got 400. It's had 400,000 views.
Nothing sums up 2021 more than me paying $3.99 to watch Joe's Apartment. And then discovering it's on YouTube. Let me just see.
What's amazing is the quality is not great, but I will say 400,000 views is remarkable for this movie. And what's even crazier is in a minute I'm going to read you some of the comments from below. We'll come to that though. So a bit of triv. Writer-director John Payson originally created a short film called Joe's Apartment in 1992, which aired on MTV as filler in between sort of commercial breaks. They used to play short skits and short films between the TV shows they had. He said he'd been inspired by a 1987 short film called Those Damn Roaches and a 1987 Japanese film called Twilight of the Cockroaches, the latter of which was a mix of hand-drawn animation and live action. So it was live action people with anime-style cockroaches. I've not looked at it, but that sounds interesting. Those are kind of inspirations. Now, the short is literally the entire date sequence from this movie, beat for beat, but on a shoestring budget and with different actors. The jokes are the same.
Which date sequence? The earlier one.
The earlier one. The one where he brings her back to his apartment with the cockroach, with the condom joke.
Yeah.
And they all fall out of the light fixture onto the girl, and she runs out screaming. It's that scene exactly, and I mean exactly. Like the dialogue is the same. Like, he says, "Shut up" to the cockroaches, and then she's like, "What?" And he's like, "Drink up," and he hands her a drink. Like, that's all exactly the same. The only difference, and it shows the amount of work, Chris, that went into sharpening up this script, is the Bon Appetit joke was originally Bon Appetit. But I think they thought
Wow.
teat might have been a bit too subtle for the people they were aiming for with this movie. So they made the joke a bit clearer by making it tit. That's genuinely
I can't
true.
believe that's trivia. Wow.
Yeah, this is where we're at. So, the short received the short, which is fine for a short. It's just a dumb 2 minutes date scene where there's loads of cockroaches. It's just kind of silly and fun, right? The short received a Cable Ace Award. MTV executives were impressed enough to discuss producing a feature adaptation with the creator, and in 1993 they made a deal with Geffen Pictures to produce films based on their properties and release them through Warner Brothers. This was the first. I believe Beavis and Butthead the movie was the second. The CGI roach scenes were filmed with the same graphics engines as used on Jurassic Park and Terminator 2 Judgment Day. So my question, Chris, is how the fuck does it look so shit?
Wow. God.
Isn't that
That's
crazy?
quite the difference.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. Those two movies famously have effects that still, to this day, blow minds. How? I don't know. Don't worry, we're already halfway through the truth, Chris. That's how little there is. The film had, and I swear that this is true. So this is both. This is one of those things where this is simultaneously surprisingly low and far too much for this movie. The budget, $13 million. Now, $13 million isn't very much for a film in the grand scheme of things, but for this film, you do sort of wonder where that money went. I guess that CGI engine. Do you want to know how much it made?
Oh, less, I'm guessing.
Yeah, $5 million. And
Wow.
that $13 million budget does not cover any marketing they did. This is how scraping the bottom of the barrel we are for trivia, Chris. The Polish release was titled Cockroaches Under the Couch, and in Brazil it was just called Joe and the Cockroaches. This is my favourite part, and we're just going to talk about response for a minute. And this will lead into me looking at some of those YouTube comments. Reviews were almost universally negative, mostly distaste at the blending of grim and grimy gross-out gags with upbeat musical humour. Roger Ebert gave the film 1 star out of 4, stating Joe's apartment would be a very bad comedy even without the roaches, but at least then it wouldn't be a disgusting one. And then he added, no way, I take that back. Even without the roaches, we'd still have a subplot involving disinfectant urinal cakes.
That's true.
Fucking love Roger Ebert.
Just before the YouTube things, like, because kind of we touched upon this, but haven't actually discussed it, and I know we're both really exhausted with discussing this film. But do you think it's that gross out?
Sorry, I didn't quite hear what you said
sure.
then.
Do you think it's that gross out?
Yeah,
or is it just
particularly
maybe
early on.
comparatively to modern films, it doesn't seem that gross out.
I think early on when he first gets in the apartment and there's a cockroach on his toast and then this old toast and he eats it anyway.
And the mold and stuff.
Yeah, there's mold and like I think it's pretty gross. Like the movie is pretty grim, on that sense.
That's fair.
And a lot of the jokes derive from like things being disgusting. I know that's the point, so like it's fine. Like there's a reason I didn't mention that in this movie because it's not. I can't really criticize it for the gross out humor. It's clear that's what they were going for. The problem is it just doesn't work when mixed in with everything else. Like the movie's too hodgepodge to. I mean, at one point they even go for a sort of. This is what I mean about this movie just being like a bunch of different ideas strapped together, like to the point where none of them really work with it. There's a sequence in the movie where 2 criminals like try to trash the apartment to scare Joe off. And they have a sort of Home Alone Mouse Hunt style fight sequence with the cockroaches where they're trying to get the cockroaches and they're bumping into each other comedically. Do you know what I mean? That's very Home Alone Mouse Hunt, that sequence. But there's nothing else like that in the rest of the movie. So it's like, I don't know, this movie just wants to do a bit of everything, I guess. It couldn't settle on any particular idea. It's going back to its reception. On Rotten Tomatoes, it holds a rating of 19% from only 27 reviews. The consensus reads, audiences will not want their security deposit back from Joe's apartment. A lame comedy whose dancing cockroaches are more charming than its human characters. I would agree.
Yeah, they're not wrong there.
And I will say that, the two leads involved are doing the best of what they have. Jerry O'Connell and Megan Ward do, bless them, try really hard to make this work. The script just isn't doing them any favours. The only actor, I think, or performer, I should say, that comes out of... Well, it is acting. That comes out of this well is Billy West, who does Ralph Roach. I love Billy West's voice. I love his voice work. I think he actually does a really good job bringing the cockroach to life. He has got a lot of personality, despite being quite annoyingly nasal or high-pitched or whatever. I genuinely think Billy West did as good a job as he could with this and deserves a bit of a shout-out.
Yeah.
Now, conversely to the, universally negative reviews from critics and on Rotten Tomatoes only having 19%, when the audiences have been surveyed on CinemaScore, they gave the film a B+.
Wow.
And I want to follow that up with some YouTube comments, because I flicked through them and was amazed at how, I guess, nostalgia blind people must be to this film who did see it in that era. Yes, I still remember every song of this movie from my childhood. I typed in Joe's apartment, funny scenes, and got the full movie. This is amazing. If cockroaches could talk, I wouldn't be... Oh, no, that's not relevant. Amazing performances by the Roaches. Make Joe's apartment 2. That comment has 230 likes.
I mean, it's definitely misselling to search Joe's apartment's funny scenes and get the whole movie.
It surprises me that... this is the one that got me. Surprises me that this beautiful CGI has aged so damn well from 1996. It looks better than most of the shit CGI you get in TV now. Flash, I'm looking at you. This is a movie, number one.
Yeah,
and number two,
full TV.
And it doesn't look better. The Flash looks remarkable. I mean, not for... Flash is a TV show. It's on a shoestring budget. But, not just because of time passing, but also just because it's done well. Well, comparatively. No, you can't. No. Only one question. Who is responsible for this? Who is responsible for this antithesis of art? Whoever they are, I must congratulate you for this wildly hilarious movie.
See, that feels sarcastic, to be fair.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know why I said to be fair so weird then. To be fair.
If they make a sequel, they should call it Joe's New Apartment. I haven't seen this movie in forever. I love it. Why does the CG in this movie look better than today's shit? That's a different person to the previous one that said that. This.
I'll tell you what though, I'm all for rebooting it.
Yeah, do it right.
I think the premise could be done well.
Yeah, I agree. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with the idea in its principle. The execution is where it's all gone wrong, obviously. I haven't seen this movie since it first came out, and I was 17 years old. I love this movie. One of my favorites of all time, an underrated classic comedy, and then 3 of those strong arm emojis. I wish the roaches that lived in my apartment were my friends too. Someone put a movie I can never forget. I think that's one of the most honest comments. Take what you will from that. I miss this funny ass movie. I totally forgot about this movie. Lucky I came across it. I remember growing up around 4 or 5 watching this. Again, 4 or 5. This is what I'm saying. This is entertaining children.
Funny ass movies on the DVD cover, isn't it?
Yeah. Let me just have a look at this. Is there anything else? The 90s was such an influential time. The clothing, the music, the video games. I was young, but I remember how awesome life was back then. I watched this movie every day on VHS when I was 6 or 7 years old. Do you see what I mean about this appealing to literally children? But I think even we, being, I think, relatively liberal, wouldn't want this. I don't think this is an appropriate movie for children necessarily. There's nothing crazy in it, but I don't think this is a movie I would hand to a 6 or 7 year old.
No, certainly not. Yeah, certainly not 4 or 5.
Yeah.
No.
I think once you're sort of 11, 12, yeah, maybe that's more okay. But a 6 or 7 year old watching this movie with a cockroach porn scene, with a cockroach dominatrix. I mean, come on. So the reason I wanted to bring those up is just oh, look at this. Joe's Apartment is so funny because I used to watch this when I was little, and I remembered some of the jokes from the Roaches. All this is a lot of people who, as I did, watched this very young, thought it was the best thing ever. The only difference is I've rewatched it and gone, oh my God, what was wrong with me? These people have all rewatched it and gone, hit me with that sweet, sweet nostalgia.
It really makes me want to rewatch Kevin and Perry Go Large.
I bet that's a terrible movie.
Because that's kind of the equivalent. So for those that don't know, Kevin the Teenager was from a Harry Enfield and Chums and Harry Enfield's television program, which was a sketch shows in the UK, and they stretched it out into a whole movie about two teenagers wanting to go to Ibiza and lose their virginity. And it's kind of that same principle of, should this really have been stretched out to a film? But we were like exactly the right age for that film.
Yeah.
And I personally, as a kid, loved it. And I would just want to rewatch it and just kind of go, is it awful?
Well,
is there
funny.
Some merit?
It would be interesting to get your opinion. I unfortunately didn't particularly care for it at the time. I guess I was the odd one out because a lot of kids at school thought that was like the greatest movie, and it was sort of passed around like it's one of those movies that was sort of like some kid had it on DVD or video or whatever, and like, because a lot of people's parents wouldn't let their kids watch that movie because, again, that's another movie that is full of jokes, that the level of humor is aimed at younger people, but the content arguably would get it a rating that would mean it wouldn't, strictly speaking, be watched by children. So I feel like the VHS of that or the DVD of that was passed around at my school at least a certain amount. But I remember being a little bit disappointed when I saw that film and finding it kind of boring in places and not all the jokes hit. But I acknowledge I'm an outlier, so I don't know if that will. I don't know if maybe my opinion of it will improve. Maybe I'll enjoy it more at a second viewing. But anyway, so that's Joe's Apartment. Don't put yourself through it.
Before you move on, could I just add? I can't hear the sound and whether like it's legit, but also on YouTube, Kevin and Perry Go Large is the entire movie. Like I say, I don't know if it's got sound because obviously I've got my headphones connected to the
there
school,
it is, and it's been there for 6 years, just sat on there. Wow. That's crazy.
And it's only got four. You know what I mean? For 6 years, it's only got 4,000.
Well,
90,000 views.
Now that's funny as well, though, because actually there is a real comparison to be made there, because Joe's Apartment, movie very much of its time, like child humor but with like adult content. Both of these were put on YouTube with it sort of 4 to 6 years of each other, 4 to 6 years ago. They both racked up 400,000 views almost exactly. Like Joe's Apartment has the same number of views. Also, like, completely. What's hilarious is I'm watching this video. I've just clicked on it myself just to see that it's the whole movie, and it really is. But what's amazing is YouTube, seeing that the video has the words Kevin Perry Go Large at the top, offering to me to rent the movie from them. Like, on my screen, I'm watching the movie, and then in the top right corner, it says Kevin Perry Go Large rent, and it's
There's a lot of comments about the soundtrack, which makes me wonder if it is just maybe like I
remember the lead. I think isn't the lead song is "All I Wanna Do Is Do It." Bicko.
Yeah,
I remember that one. Yeah, that was a good song. To be fair, well, it wasn't a good song. It was a.
It's not a good song.
It's a catchy song, and it's for its time, and it captures that. Like, see, I think the difference will be actually. I think the Kevin and Perry movie had a pretty clear idea of what it wanted to be. I'll give it. I don't feel like Joe's Apartment knew what it wanted to be.
That's absolutely fair.
Yeah. So that was Joe's Apartment. I am sorry. I repeat my apology. I genuinely, I take this on the chin because it's. I responded to your knife with a nuke, and that is not fair and not right. I didn't know what I was doing. And I regret it.
That's fair.
Deeply.
That's
fair.
Do you
accept my apology? Because I do feel bad for making you watch this movie.
I think, you can find merit in a lot of things, but I think it probably is the worst film we've seen.
Yeah, it's the worst film we've seen. It is. I can't debate that. It's not. At this point, it's not the debate. It's not even a debate. It's just the fact. Don't watch it. If you're curious, find some clips, or maybe just watch the short. The short's on YouTube. It's 2.5 minutes long. That'll give you an idea of what the rest of the film is. If you're curious, 2 minutes of your time won't hurt, whereas an hour and 16 minutes will feel like many years of your life have been drained from you. I do think every time you watch Joe's Apartment, you use a year of your life.
The stress and disappointment.
Mm-hmm. Like how they say, like, every time you smoke a cigarette, you're taking 10 minutes off your life or something like that. So like, over the years, smoking hundreds of them adds up. I think that it's that effect, but times thousands. So every time you watch Joe's Apartment, you literally lose years. Anyway, what we watching next, Chris? I'm very curious because I know my next choice already, because in apology for this, I'm going to choose a movie that I loved in my youth and thought of as one of my favorite films, and still, if you were to ask me today to list my 5-10 favorite films, it's still in there. I'm going to make up for this with the opposite end of the scale, basically. A movie I loved as a kid, but it turns out is probably one of the biggest piles of shit I ever liked, to a movie that I liked as a kid and still think is a masterpiece today. That's what I'm thinking of for my next choice, just as an apology.
But is it making it up to me? Are you confident I'm going to enjoy it?
Yes.
Okay,
it's a masterpiece. I haven't chosen the film aimed at you. I've just chosen a film I know is solid, really good.
Of course.
Yeah, I didn't go, Chris will like this one. Here's my apology. I just chose a good film.
Do you know if I've seen it?
I don't actually, but I suspect you probably have. But I don't know that for sure. But I'm pretty excited about that. That'll be my way of apologizing to you for this. Is giving you a movie I'm pretty confident. If you haven't seen it, you'll like it. If you have seen it, you'll already like. I feel confident about that because I do genuinely feel awful. So with that said, that's obviously 2 weeks from now. What are we watching next week, Chris?
Well, I'm not 100% sure we're going too far up in quality. Although I remember enjoying this film as a kid, and certainly I think we have discussed at least the cleverness of this film's premise. So I kind of thought we'd not really done horror, thriller, and I thought about something like Friday the 13th, or the original Halloween, or the original Nightmare on Elm Street.
Ooh, can I before you say it, may I have one guess at what it might be? Not right now. You finished saying your spiel, but right before you're going to say it, let me see if I can guess.
Yeah, I mean, I've given a fair amount of hints, so you probably will be able to guess. But I decided not to go for them because I did watch them young. I do really like those films. Mm-hmm. I kind of watched them like media studies age. A film kind of in that ballpark genre that fits the spirit of this podcast better is... Go on.
The Faculty?
No.
Oh, really? Okay, once you started naming slasher movies, I was like, what slasher movie came out while we were in
No,
school?
It's not a slasher movie, more horror thriller. I said ballpark of that genre for a reason.
Right.
So we're gonna I don't know how this holds up, but I'm intrigued. So we're gonna watch Final Destination.
Oh, that was basically my other option. Yeah, okay. Excellent. Yeah, good. That's an interesting choice. I do also remember enjoying that when I was younger. I thought the idea was clever. Whether it's executed well or not, I don't know. I only have one visual from that movie buried in my brain, and it's comical, and I can't remember if it's intended to be comical or if it's a bad movie.
Is it the knives?
What's that, sorry?
Is it the knives?
No, it's a. Shall I just say what it is? Does it matter?
Yeah.
It's. I have an image in my brain, and it might not even be from the first Faculty. I don't know where this is from.
Final Destination.
Sorry, Final Destination. I've got Faculty in my head, evidently. It's where they're on a roadside, and the quote unquote comedy character, like the one that had been making quips, the sort of Chandler of the group, is got like, this is crazy, this is ridiculous, this situation we're in, and then a car drives past and like knocks a sign or something off, and then slices his head off in like one move.
Yeah, I think that is the first one. Yeah,
it's a comedic moment in my head. And I can't remember if comedy is what they're going for in that moment, in which case, because I remember it being funny, or if they're trying to make it a serious, shocking death, in which case, boo, because that's fucking hilarious.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can't and I don't. Fundamentally, and like I say, I think this is the discussion you and I have had. The fundamental premise of the film
is brilliant.
Is definitely a good premise.
Yes. Let's see if the execution matches that.
Yeah, can't remember too much about the execution, and I know that like Saw, it becomes just the later films just become how insane can we make these deaths? Yes. Again, I can't remember how much of that is in the first one. So yeah, I thought of it the other day. And I was like, we haven't really done a film like that, so fuck it.
Yeah, I had a sort of more horror-y one in my back pocket for some point this series as well.
Was it The Faculty?
No. But just when you started talking about sort of slasher movies, I just thought about the ones that were in that ballpark that came out when we were younger. I think the Faculty feels like, it's a bunch of teenagers in school being picked off one by one.
Yeah.
Like it does feel like it might have been. I mean, I assume you've seen Faculty, because
I don't think I have.
Oh, really? I feel like everyone around my age saw and loved that film in high school / early college. Like, I feel like it's that's another one that made the rounds. No, the one I've got is actually a really deeply inappropriate film for children to see, and the one I've put back pocketing at the moment, I'll tease it because we probably still will do it at some point this series, is a film that was literally passed around in hushed whispers on VHS or DVD at my school because it was absolutely a deeply inappropriate film to show young people. Like a true...
I mean, that sounds like The Exorcist, but obviously we
will see. I've teased it, and I'll leave it there.
Cool. There we go, people.
Yeah,
I mean, can you imagine how disappointed anyone expecting the first episode of season 2 of Avatar is going to be?
Well, I think we made it pretty clear that we were doing this for a bit.
Still, there'll be some people that don't fucking bother listening to us just ramble at the end.
If anyone's gotten this far who was actually expecting an Avatar episode this week, or us to discuss that, please comment below and let us know. I'll be curious.
But the thing is, Dan, in the same way that we don't know who the audience for the film is, I don't know who the audience for this podcast is.
You know why? Do you know why you don't know that? Because we don't yet have an audience for this podcast.
No, not just this podcast, but like this specific episode. Because
right.
I don't think that many people are going to have seen Joe's Apartment.
Yeah, I mean, it's got as many views on YouTube as Kevin and Perry Go Large. So I mean, that suggests a certain.
That's not the barometer. You can't just assume
that's
we're aiming for the best.
That's the best barometer we currently have access to, though, is it not?
True.
There are clearly a lot of people searching this film on YouTube.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, not overly. Like, how long did you say that had been up? 6 years?
No, 6 years was Kevin and Perry. That I think that Joe's Apartment was 2 or 4. 2, 2018. Well, it's nearly 3.
So, divided by 2, divided by 12. There's about 16,000 people searching for Joe's Apartment on YouTube every month.
There you go. So
that's insane.
That will be some good figures for us.
Yeah.
Even a percentage of that would make it our most popular episode. So yeah. Oh man.
But seriously, thank you again to everyone that is listening and supporting. Very much appreciated.
So yeah, if you want to hear us talk about Final Destination right now, patreon.com/nothingbutstatic. Slap down that money. That $1 a month. You can give more if you'd like, but even as little as $1 a month really helps us out. And you can, I don't know what the words I'm looking for is.
Well, there's also on Patreon Nothing But Claps.
Yeah, we haven't had a chance to promote this, I suppose.
At least an episode of, which we've not talked about it on here.
Yeah, we put up an exclusive podcast just before Christmas called Nothing But Claps, where Chris and I have a discussion where where Chris asks me questions, he interviews me, but all the questions are related to claps, such as questions related to the clap, as in the sexually transmitted disease, and questions towards what's the hardest you've ever clapped, and stuff like that. So it actually turned out to be one of the closest to a legitimate podcast we've ever done.
I don't know why I had faith in it from the beginning, my friend.
You did. It's great. So at some point we'll do a sequel episode to that. I don't know. We're a little bit behind in terms of recording ahead at the moment, so that might delay that slightly while we catch up. But at some point we're going to do a sequel episode where I ask those exact same questions of Chris and get his answers. And then,
although, can I just say, because I'm worried that we ourselves, in a similar way to MTV, might have missold. There's only one question about gonorrhea.
Yeah.
But
it was that was my way of saying there are some silly questions in there as well as some legitimate questions. Right, yeah. It wasn't so much.
I don't want people expecting Gonorrhea the podcast and getting you talking about Bewitched and being angry about
that. Me being angry about all sorts of stuff. Yeah. So yeah,
no. Them being angry because it's you talking about bewitched.
Right? Yeah. And worth noting, I don't talk about bewitched for every answer.
No, yeah. Also,
one of the questions was when was the last time I was in Clapham?
As clear, it's a very, very varied podcast.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, thanks very much for listening, everyone. We will see you in a week's time. Obviously, we're going to talk ourselves silly about Final Destination. We're going to find out if they execute that premise as well as we're hoping they will, or if it turns out that they've missed the mark, very much like Joe's Apartment did. So I'm going to hand it over, as always, to Chris to wrap us up.
Yes, my name is Chris Billingham.
I've been Dan Dillon.
And this review has been rewound.
Booyah. That was fun.
My name wasn't right, was it? It should have been I've been. Let's do it again, Dan.
Oh.
I know. You wanted it to be so smooth, the ending this time, but oh well. I've been Chris Billingham.
I've been Dan Dillon.
And this review has been rewound.
Oh, nailed it. Look, Chris, let's be honest. For a man who doesn't end the podcasts every week that we do, the weekly ones, like Analyzing Avatar, I think I do the ending on Same with Nothing But Static. You're coming in. You've not done it for a little while. Just kind of a bit rusty. A second take is still pretty impressive.
Oh, mate. It's as smooth as butter that's being stored in the fridge.
Mm-hmm.
Just
as
give it a bit of a...
as smooth as butter that's been stored in the fridge, and somebody has already used it once, but for toast, and there's a few bits in it that you might have to scrape out next time you.
In all seriousness,
yes.
I'm a fucking king when it comes to getting refrigerated hard butter soft. Like it's true.
Oh no! Okay, right. I have so many things I want to say about that. First of all, who gives a shit? Like,
feel free.
That is not something you should be proud of.
Feel free to clip, because no one's going to hear this on the Joe's Apartment Rewind review episode. So feel free to clip this out if you think it's going to be of interest, and I think it should be, because
oh dear.
No, but it is a thing. You know, when you take out butter from the fridge and you try and spread it on a piece of bread, and you just can't because it's too hard, and like the bread's coming apart, and it's like a real problem. I have got it down to a fine art, Dan. I take it out the fridge, I put a bit of butter on the knife, and then basically you know when you watch a chef like cut up and turn garlic into a paste, I'll basically get a chopping board and I'll like spread it around the chopping board until it's softened, and I can do it within like 3 to 4 minutes, and it just butters like a dream, spreads like a dream. I'm no
longer sorry about Joe's Apartment.
I've not talked to a lot, but the only person who I've ever spoken to it about is Jess. And Jess doesn't care. Jess doesn't think it's impressive, although she admits that she can't do it and has tried. So I genuinely think it's it's something I don't get enough credit for. So what do you just not store butter in the fridge? What do you do?
We store the butter in the fridge, and we just deal with it. You know, we just deal with it in whatever method comes to mind. When to be fair, when it comes, look, we have that butter in the fridge. We use it for cooking more than anything. For spreading on bread, we tend to have like something like a margarine or something softer, and I can't believe it's not butter type, like an olive based sort of low fat spread for like sandwiches and stuff. Because the real stuff, as you've pointed out, it ends up in clumps or it tears up the bread.
Well, not with my technique. This is my point.
Yeah, but you yourself have pointed out, Chris, that Jess can't replicate your technique, so it's fucking useless to me. Unless you're willing to come live in my house in a little cupboard, and every time I want to use butter, I ding a little bell, and you pop out of the cupboard like a little gnome. Run over, do your technique, and then go back into your fucking cave. Unless you're willing to do that, Chris, for the fee of nothing a month, then I think I'll just stick with buying margarine.
I might try and teach you, because you could argue, like, you could hide behind, an olive oil spread is healthier as well.
It is.
But I would argue the calories I burn whipping the regular butter into spreadable shape probably make up for the calories of intaking the butter.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, possibly. Probably not.
You can't answer, yeah, possibly. That's two different answers, Chris. One is yes, I'm sure. No. One is I'm not so sure.
Nah. Well, in that case,
right, well, I'll tell you what then. In that case, Chris, I'm having the cupboard installed now. Would you like? How big would you like the cupboard that you're going to live in my kitchen to be?
Massive, mate. I keep eating real butter. Like the cupboard needs to be huge to fit me.
Well, we saved this gold for the end, didn't we? Fucking hell.
No. To be honest with you, the olive oil spread is still going to be healthier.
Good.
But I just think, like I say, I just think I need to bring it up with more people and see if they're impressed, I guess.
Do you think they will be?
Probably not. And
so in a way, again, though, do you not feel like you're proud of solving a problem that most people don't feel is that much of a problem? That's the issue. I'm not saying if you've got some technique for making it easy to spread that's not impressive. I'm simply saying no one cares enough. You know what I mean? You're solving a problem that doesn't bother that many people. That's your issue.
No. If anything, I imagine a lot of people, like in the example of toast.
Yep.
Although I don't know a lot of people that actually have real butter on toast, but for me, there's nothing beats it. I imagine more people just just let the toast melt it a bit and use it as an excuse to have more butter.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Anyway. So I've been Chris Billingham.
I've been Dan Doolan.
And this review has been rewound.
I mean, this second extra bit of the review has been rewound. Now we're done, finally. Cool.
Yeah.
Come back in a week for something else. Oh, dear.
I don't even know how we got onto that.
I don't either.
Oh, smooth as butter that's been in the fridge.
Fuck me. Right, yeah, there you go. That's how we did it. I don't know if I wanted to know how we did it.
You're just happy to be here.
I'm just happy to be here, Chris, and hear you talk. That's like you know what else? It was the amount of time that you spent. The amount of time you legitimately spent sincerely and proudly explaining the technique.
Mate, I am impressed with myself every time I do it.
I understand.
Meh.
All right, I'm definitely ending it there. Thanks everyone for listening. Nothing but static. YouTube channel, I don't know, Patreon, Twitter. I don't care. Just go.